and foremost, thank you everybody for joining today. The domain team and I were strategizing around, it's getting close to the end of the year. We start to, some of us start to wind down, and ultimately, the right people start to think about, how do we set next year up for success? And so we came up with this concept, which is let's get the right people in the room today. And ultimately talk about, what are the things that we, number one, do in general, which is setting up a high performance culture. What are the tools that we use, and ultimately, what's the way that high performers think? And so, when we were chatting about that, the two people that popped to my head straight away as the two gentlemen in front of you, Will Torres and Dean Mackie. So I had the pleasure of meeting Will probably 6-ish, 7-ish months ago. I was talking at a domain breakfast, and we sat across from each other and caught up for dinner a few months ago, and I was absolutely blown away. For those of you that don't know Will, from a high performer, from a volumes perspective, and we'll be able to get into that shortly, the man is on fire and has an incredible business in Queensland. Now, as well as that is Dean Mackie. Now, I've had the privilege of knowing Dean for quite some years, and as I mentioned, had him over for lunch. The thing that stands out for me, Dean, and hopefully you guys don't mind me pumping you up in front of everybody, is the thing that stands out for me is you have a really impressive business in Di Jones. Multiple offices across, many offices across New South Wales. But I've always seen you guys as thinking about technology first when it comes to your agents, and how to use tools to really get them to stand out from the crowd. Now, I'll give that starting position for everybody, but the key takeaway I want you to know is today is not a sales pitch. Yes, it is domain, it is real base. The last thing I want to do is have a 1-hour sales pitch to everybody and kind of bore you to death and you want to jump off. Ultimately, it's about what's the valuable takeaway that you can take into your business to do better into next year. And so let me start with this, Will. The normal thing to do, and dare I say the boring thing, is I ask you about you and I ask you about your business. But before we get there, what's the context that we need to know about you that's made you the high-performing agent that you are today? And maybe come take us back to your childhood, if you will.
That's a good question. A good segue into obviously where I am today. But I started real estate about 18 years ago, and I came from a third world country. I was a refugee and had the privilege to, my mother actually had the opportunity to come to this country. So we came here, fled the war back in Central America, which was in El Salvador, and then obviously established ourselves here for probably the first 20 years of my life, or maybe 18, 19 years to 20 years of my life was in public housing for quite some time. So, my mother went from working in government to then coming to this country, not knowing any English and having to clean houses just to, put food on the table, to pay the rent, just to get by. And I saw a lot of pain, a lot of hurt. So through her eyes and I guess through her energy and getting out of high school, didn't know what I wanted to do. And mum was like, why don't you do real estate? And I'm like, what's that? She's like, well, you sell houses. And I thought, well, it's better than selling cars. So I'm gonna give it a shot. Let's see how we go. Mate, I had my moments where I did second guess myself and think if this really was for me, because I think with real estate, a lot's to do with, being likable, having the confidence. Product knowledge also helps. But, if you've got that confidence, I think people can feel that, can feel the right energy, and they start to obviously resonate with you. And you've got to be relatable, of course. So coming into real estate in my young, early 20s, I think it was early to mid 20s when I started real estate, I didn't have the confidence because I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't really have the best coaches. But slowly and surely, just kept up with it. And then, mate, just tapped into a market that I was really good at, and got to be relatable, and people started to like me. And mate, good thing is I got out of public housing, got to buy my mum a house, which was probably one of the biggest things in my career, I can say. And lived very well and grown an office to 30 people in the last 5 years. And we continue to sort of obviously build on that. So very, very excited for what's ahead, mate.
I love that. Well, when you told me that story, my mind was absolutely blown. But the takeaway for me is one of these key things. When you see high performing people, often there's something in their context and in their past and something that shapes them and their childhood that's their driver. It's their why. And it's the thing that when you make that, that one day when you're hesitant to make that next cold call, it's that thing that just pushes you through. And that's clearly evident in you. Now, let me flip it over to you, Dean. It's like, take us back to your childhood. Is there anything contextually for you that's created the person that sits in front of us today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, well, just firstly, good story, mate. It's sort of, I sat here thinking about my own life as a child, and similar but different. I wasn't a refugee, but in this country, I sort of come from a family on the wrong side of the tracks. Moved around quite a lot. In fact, went to 16 different schools, lived in some caravans. And we moved around a lot because we couldn't pay the bills in the town. So we'd, in those days, there was no internet, but when the sheriff come knocking on the door and you knew you couldn't pay the bills, we'd sort of hide under the laundry sink and then pack up and go that night. So, I certainly understand that school of hard knocks, and you've got to learn pretty quickly when you're moving around how to survive, how to communicate with people. And there was obviously a lot of things that went on in that childhood, things that I saw that most people wouldn't have lived a number of lives as a consequence of that. But I think I was very fortunate. My mum was somebody who, despite the fact that she'd come from a pretty broken life with lots of violence and alcoholism and those sorts of things, she still is a woman who has this salt of the earth soul, and she did a lot with me around putting a lot of belief in myself, around believing in yourself, and knowing that if you believe in something enough and you're prepared to take the action, you can achieve whatever you want. She was a big inspiration, and just setting the foundations of, if you want to sort of think about it as connecting to the Force in Star Wars, the sort of Jedi mind, if you want to call it that, you can make things happen if you're prepared to get your mind right. So that said, as a child, there's a lot of things in my life that I was quite angry about. So I went through a stage of trying to have to learn about that. I ended up putting myself through uni to economics and psychology, played professional footy, did a few things like played footy because it was mainly a free sport and it allowed me to get all my anger out as a child. But when I got old enough to understand how to process that, the psychology, the hypnosis and all the stuff that went with it was real about around self-healing. And unfortunately for me, I think for a number of years when I was younger in my early adult life, I was really trying to prove myself to myself as a consequence of all of that. So I was really driving achievement, really focused on how do I achieve more. Burnt through a few relationships and health and all those sorts of things in that time frame because you're potentially chasing things in an unbalanced and inconsiderate way. So, I'm fortunate. I'm now 52. That's why the hair's not there anymore. But I've certainly learned that getting the balance right and knowing that you can find your greatness and you don't have to do it at the expense of health, relationships, and all those things, and to do things more from the perspective of happiness. And if you can get really clear about being thankful and grateful for life, you can actually, tune into things that you wouldn't otherwise tune in a much more considered way. So yeah, I definitely think, Frank, the childhood I've had has taught me a lot, and I wouldn't change a minute of it because it gets you exactly where you are today.
Amazing. What a way, gentlemen, to start today and to frame up today's discussion. So let me continue pulling that thread with you there, Dean, around the nurturing and that really, I guess, values driven that your mum instilled in you. And what I want to think about is how have some of those values transitioned into your business, into your team? So around the concept of, allowing your agents to see, anything's possible and pushing them, what does that look like in your business and how has that translated?
Well, look, I think moving out of my head and into my heart and getting that connection right has been a big transformation for me, coming out of previous business and now doing what I'm doing here as a CEO at Di Jones. We're not a franchise, so all of our 24 offices are centrally run and owned. And it's very important for me, I've learned over the years, to actually work with people with aligned vision and values. So, Di herself, she was a 30-year stalwart in our industry. She was a pioneer. She was innovative. She was curious. She cared about her people. And so when I was able to secure the brand of Di Jones, I wanted to reimagine what it would look like, sort of based upon where Di came from and where I came from. And where I landed was clearly that I wanted to our vision at Di Jones is to give power to your purpose, to our team's purpose, to our client's purpose. And if you think about that, that's actually quite an interesting vision for us, because it comes from a place of giving and a place of enablement. So it's understanding what it is that is important to somebody and helping them achieve that. So we took a very big list. We take a very big listing position, and when we meet people coming into our organization, and we have people inside the business, it's very important that they're aligned to the concept of being curious, wanting to grow, wanting to learn, wanting to improve, and wanting to find their purpose. And so for us, culturally, it's about how do we help people get clear to achieve their greatness, and we underpin that with 4 values, and we sort of know that it's pretty exhausting if you're trying to pretend you're someone else. And so we really value things like authenticity, people being authentic. and doing you. So, it's I'll do you. Well, I'm sitting here in a Di Jones t-shirt today and not a suit and tie because this is doing me, right? And I think that when you do you, it's much easier to find those things that work for you and double down on those rather than sort of, if a lot of our industry presents itself as, in my view, a little bit flashy and fake. And I think that, that's not us. So being clear about, what are the values and the people that you have in the business. So the other values we have in our organization are around making your mark and staying hungry. So, people being prepared to have a go, being innovative, being curious, wanting to always learn and grow. Those values there underpin that. But most importantly, for me, is also being mutual. So I think that, it's living in sync. It's working in a more collaborative way. It's looking for a way in which we can have an enduring relationship over time where both parties get what they want from it. So I think it starts with having a North Star around how you want to behave, the sort of people that you want to work with, the way that you want the customer to experience your services comes down to making sure that all of those standards and all of those behaviors around what you expect to be, the way that we operate and communicate. And, for me, that's the only real way that I've sort of learned over the years. If I take those learnings as a kid, my mum taught me a lot of that stuff too. It's like, have a purpose, be clear, set some goals, don't be scared to have a go. It doesn't matter where you are today because, where you are today is just it's come from really your beliefs about the past. So, if we understand that today you've got a brand new opportunity to start again, I look for the good in people to say, how can we, even if you haven't quite got the right strategy at the moment, how can we help you? But it starts with you getting clear about what it is that lights you up, those things that are important to you. And it's not just about the things that are important to you in your business, but those things that are important to you in your life. And I find a lot of people are not clear on that. So I think if you can unpack all of those things, I'm sort of living a lot of those truths and the values that Mum taught me around enablement and believing in yourself,
I love that. So something I want to echo there, Dean, is purpose. For me, purpose is everything. And like having that purpose and having that mission and having that driver, it can fundamentally unlock so many things. But one of the key things that I look for when I'm having an interview with a new team member, someone who's going to enter the business, is I want to find out their why. I want to find out their purpose, whatever it might be.
Well, Frank, as an example on that, if you take the example, I mean, look, if you, we talk, it's good to talk about, right? Because often we do so much 101 real estate training in this space. But this is probably an untapped area that really helps people with wellness and mindset and how they feel about their lives, their relationships, and all those things. And so we run a number of initiatives throughout the year, which is all based upon helping people learn how to learn skills other than just real estate, right? And it's about how we deal with sleep and resilience and stress mastery. And even insofar as in March, for example, coming up in next year, last year we did it with the Kings, but this year we're doing Sydney Swans. So we actually spent a full day over at their Centre of Excellence, and we spend the whole time focusing on the 1 percenters that help you achieve high performance. How do we work amazingly as a team? How do we do things that they can take back that are not just about real estate and what they can apply in their business, but what they can apply in their life to becoming a better human being, a better person, and a high performer in any part of their life, right? So being able to have a pedestal or a forum at which I can affect change, that excites me and lights me up. And I think that we as leaders and as individuals need to take more responsibility for that.
That's awesome. And what a perfect segue to my question to you, Will.
Yeah.
Which is, how do you define a high performance culture in your business? What does that look like? And ultimately, how do you keep people to that standard?
Mate, and I love what Dean was saying before, obviously background, upbringing. I was having this meeting. I have a Monday morning meeting every Monday with my team. One thing we talked about on Monday yesterday, we talked about what gets you excited. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people, you asked me before, Frank, look at yourself and go back, rewind the clock 10 years from now. What would you tell yourself back then to who you are now? And I think one thing that I really want to sort of emphasize with the guys and girls that are watching this podcast at the moment or listening in to this obviously recording is that, you have to find what excites you. Why is it that a lot of real estate agents, when they get into real estate in their first 6 months, they're excited? They love real estate. They can't wait to just kill it. Is it the suits? Is it the cars? Is it the watch? Is it the money? But they come into the business and they've got a spring in their step. They're loving it. They're enjoying it. And then a year, 2 years, 3 years go by. And that's where the magic needs to happen. but then they get complacent. They start talking themselves out of the business. And I think more or less, I think we become lazy. But the interesting part is we actually have more knowledge, more power, more product knowledge, and more confidence than when we got into real estate in our first 6 months. And I think what people need to understand, anyone who's listening into this, is what excites you. And that's the culture about my team. That's one thing that I really want to drive on into the new year in 2024. Look at what excited you in the first 6 months of real estate. Was it coming in, working alongside someone who's a high performer? Did that excite you? Being in their energy, being in their atmosphere, doing a letterbox drop, going out to talk to a developer who's got a beautiful property, and you're going, wow, this is a $3, $4, $5, $10 million home. And you do more of that because that excites you. That gives you fuel. It puts fuel in your belly, a fire in your belly, so to speak. Is it picking up the phone, making calls? Is it going to door knock? You have to find what excites you, what gives you that energy, that passion to keep you going. And I think that is going to be something that is going to keep with people from not just the first 6 months, but then reflecting on that person that you were in the first 6 months, that was that energy, and then drawing it out for the rest of your career, either being 3, 5, 10, 15, 25 years, or however long you decide to stay in the industry for. That's what's going to fuel your energy, and I guess going to make more for yourself. So I think my culture is all really about supporting and really trying to support everyone within the culture, and really doing more of that, and not being bitter about things, but being better about it, and continuing to drive for more and be more successful. So I think the culture and the energy is really important. And I think that's what we really sort of try and tap into, Frank, back to basics. Real estate's not rocket science. Everything that we're going to say here, yourself, Frank, Dean, myself, I think it's everyone's heard it all before, but it's about how the message is delivered and how people take that on, and they decide, well, yeah, okay, that's the message that Dean, Frank, and Will have said. Now, how was that delivered, and how can I apply that to my lifestyle, into my business? So I think it all really starts from what gets you excited. Be relatable, be likable. That is what real estate's about. All the other stuff, product knowledge, you'll learn that as you go along. We go into presentations and we sit in front of a client, and you ask them, when were the renovations done? You're not guessing when the renovations were done. You're not asking them what that stone is. And then you're regurgitating that information but and you're making it poetry to the buyers that are coming in, and you're making it sound better. So I think that really just comes down to those simple factors, and really diving yourself into it and really enjoying what you do. That's important. And I think that's what my culture is about, man. Just giving it a fucking good go.
Oh, mate, I am fired up. I've got two things. Number one, you said we're not going to tell everybody anything new. Hey, come on, we're going to say a couple of new things, Will. Don't underplay us. Number two is let's really help the listeners here today. Let's pretend I'm 24 years old. I've been in the game 3 years. I'm starting to get complacent. Well, I guess probably complacent is not the right word. I'm starting to get burnt out. I gave it a red hot crack in 2023. I've done 15 deals this year. But Will, I'm getting tired. I'm in your team. Where do you start with me? How do you get me out of the slump?
For me, I think it's really having those conversations, reaching out and knowing when someone's getting tired, when someone's just, you can feel it. I think words of affirmation, people need that. They need to be, you believe in yourself, but you're getting tired. You did 15 deals last year, hypothetically speaking. You did 15 deals last year. This year, you're probably down to seven, maybe 7.5 deals. And you're questioning yourself, well, why am I not doing what I did last year? And I think when you start to lose it, it hits your ego, it hits your confidence, right? You start to not believe in yourself. You need to have that person, that coach, that trainer, that mentor, that person that is going to push you that extra mile, that's going to believe in you. And I think words of affirmation are such a big tool in our industry. That's why in real estate, we have coaches, we have seminars, we go to listen to one person and the next person telling us, this is what you need to do. And they get us pumped up, maybe for the day, for the week, maybe for the month. But what's important is having that trainer or that coach or that mentor within your office that you look up to, that you can go to and access every day of the week and say, hey, I'm feeling a bit down. Can we have a chat? And just putting some fuel into that fire. if that makes sense. And I think what I would do
That
with you,
makes total
Frank,
sense.
is I would, if you were one of my guys and I could see that you were in my team, you've run down, mate, we would go, I would go with you to listings together. I would put you on listings to make you feel like you're having a bit of a win. In between those appointments in the car, talk to you, hear you out, but then give you those words of affirmation, that belief that you know you're going to be someone, you know you're going to be a winner, you know you're going to kill it in the game. You just got to stick at it and do more of that. And that's what I talk about, because I think mentally, and Dean, you said this before, mindset. That's the biggest thing. You're talking sport, you're talking anyone who's a CEO, it's all about mindset. It's where your mindset's at. And it's so important. So I think if you reflect, and I'm sure most people love sport, the ones who are watching on, most of them do, you know, it's a lot to do with mindset and getting up. This morning, went for a 10K run. And I did not want to get up. I was just like, God, I don't want to do this, but because it's raining. And I got up, put the shoes on, went for a run. And halfway through the run, I thought, shit, this is easy. It's just the doing part. You know, it's just getting up and doing it. But while you're doing it, it becomes easy. You get momentum. So for me, mate, I think it would be me pushing you, encouraging you, and making you believe back in you because I believe in you.
Perfect. So what I want to help with everybody is, there might be people today on this call which goes, I don't have a leader like Will and Dee in my business. And that's okay. And so something that you just touched on there is really critically important, regardless of your situation. So you might have an amazing leader in your business. You may be completely on your own, but you still need to get exactly what you're talking about there, Will, is you still need the right people in your life. And so this is something that I'm deeply, I believe in deeply, which is two things. Number one is what you consume. So what you spend your time with consuming information, but to your point is who you surround yourself with. So if for today you don't have those people in life, whether they be leaders or other people in your business, that's okay. Make sure that you surround yourself with, like Will touched on, coaches, or for me, it's around friends. So for what I do is I have multiple friends in my life. You know, I see some Cunningham's crew here today. You know, one of the amazing friends in my life is Matt Nicastri. And he's the kind of friend that I pick up if I'm either killing it or I'm not feeling great, and we pick each other up and, you know, you push each other. You know, when I make the call and it's like, hey, I'm not feeling like the gym today. You know, it's not, oh, I'm so sorry, Frank. Oh, you're a bit sore. No, it's like, come on, do better. You know, like you do better. You know, push yourself, and you're having those right people in your life to push you forward is so critically important.
Frank,
So
you
let
know,
me swap over to you.
you know, and what you're saying, you're the product of your environment, right? You know, mate, I was shit scared when I was doing my business. I was so fearful because, and it was a fear that I've never experienced, and it was never real, right? And I thought, well, I'm just going to, and I had one of my best mates who's not in real estate. He's an engineer, so he's far from sales, you know, because they're extremely analytical. And with sales, as we all know, you just got to do, don't think. I say that to my team all the time, do, don't think. And you know, and he was just like, mate, you got to do it. Just fucking do it. You know, get out there, do it. Do Torres. You've got what it takes. You know, you literally just, it's going to be you, but in a different office space. And you just keep doing that. It's going to change everything. And honestly, as you said before, I had someone believe in me outside of real estate who said, you can do it. I had obviously guys within my team also encouraging me, saying, do it, do it, do it. And I'm thinking, yes, I know. But when you've got someone outside of that who's a friend that's known you for a long time than anyone else, you sort of go, okay, this person does believe in me. This person knows that I can make it happen. And if he's so confident or she's so confident that I can make it happen, then I know I can do it. And you just got to run with it.
100%. So Dean, not knowing your business, knowing the Dia Jones crew, and seeing the kind of evolution that you've had when it comes to technology and helping your agents, you know, list, sell, negotiate, and you know, we talk about this term dollar cost productivity almost ad nauseum, but the reality is that is how you get the best out of your agents and the best out of your teams. What I'd love to know is, there's 400 plus technology businesses out there trying to service the real estate world. If you had to, you know, so Angus Ferguson says it very well. If you had to, you know, hear one of their pitches, you'd have more pitches per day than you have in a year. So there's a lot of noise out there. My question to you is, how do you think about, assess, and focus on the right tools for your agents to actually break through and set them up for success?
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Before I answer that, just Well, just touching on what you just said, it was very interesting listening to your comment, and I do agree with you 100%. And I just want to share with everybody a quick story because it's worthwhile, right? Because you talk about childhood and life and whatever. And I love that movie when I was a kid, The Wizard of Oz, right? And I don't know, everyone's probably seen it, right? But when you go back and look at it, you've got the story of a tin man, a scarecrow, and a lion, right? And they're cruising along the yellow brick road, and they all want something, right? The lion wants courage, and the scarecrow wants brains and whatever. They just don't believe that they've got those things, right? And they're traveling with Dorothy, who's got the ruby shoes, who can click them at any time and go home, but she doesn't know it. Anyway, they get to the wizard, right? And anyway, the wizard is, the almighty who can say, I'm going to give you a heart and you're going to be now a brave lion. You can go into the jungle and roar, right? And of course he does. But when you simplify it and break it down, right, the wizard wasn't anyone other than a man pretending to be a wizard. He was effectively a charlatan, right? And they already had everything inside themselves that they needed to be brave, to be smart, to do whatever, right? And so I really agree with you, Will. It's about believing in yourself, right? So it's not always about someone else, but the minute you actually then learn to accept that you already have your greatness inside yourself, and you probably don't need that many other people to do it. You just need to get clear on your purpose and your goals. Mm-hmm. And I think when you come back to that conversation about agents who go up and down and get burnt out and they lose the love with real estate, I think it's often at times when they lose focus on what their goals are, or they've set a big goal and they haven't set little milestones along the way to actually get there. So if you want a practical example on how to deal with this stuff, just as we can round that conversation out, it's getting really clear about how to set goals and setting meaningful goals that are on purpose. And they've got a formula, and you've got really clear about the brutal facts of where you're at, what you need to achieve, and how you need to get there, and break that down into daily tasks on how to achieve that. That's the fundamentals of staying on purpose in real estate. It's a reverse engineering exercise, so getting goals and then working it back to your daily habits and your daily activities and what you say yes to and what you say no to, right? So we can get into that again if you want to, but coming back to I'm going to add to that.
Do you mind if I'm going to park my other question? You've just I think what you're saying is really, really important. Let's get practical on that goal setting, because what a beautiful time of year to talk about that. Give me what that big audacious goal looks like, and then how you work from a mechanical standpoint at Dow Jones, or even for yourself as a high performer.
Yeah, look, man, I think it's constant resetting of goals, right? So I think what you've got to do is, like I said before, I think you've got to start with a mindset of abundance and gratitude, right? And because if you see, it's only from that perspective that you can see possibilities, that you can see what is available to you. Otherwise, your goals are not necessarily that that's significant, because you're sort of thinking about it from a fixed mindset of where I'm at the moment, not where I want to be in the future. So I think you can only do that if you're going into a headspace of abundance and gratitude. So one thing I would say to everyone, keep a gratitude journal. It helps you stay in that headspace, right? But if you can actually live in a headspace of abundance and gratitude, you're probably living in the top 2% of the world in terms of mind space, right? And that allows you to focus on how do you improve, how do you learn, how do you look at possibilities, how do you embrace change, how do you innovate, how do you grow, right? And that allows you to get out of your comfort zone, to be okay to move into a bit of fear zone, okay to learn. I'm going to move into learning zone, and now I'm going to grow. Because if you're sitting in your comfort zone or fear zone, you're not going to be prepared to learn and make the changes you need to, and you're not going to grow. And the other thing that people do when it comes to this practical sense, Frank, in setting goals, is that most people say, "Oh, when I have this, I will do X, and then I'll be happy." And again, it's a reverse engineering exercise here. It's basically, let's start. If you want to be a high performing agent, well, what does that actually mean? What does that need to look like? If you want to be a great partner to your wife, your husband, what does that actually look like? So actually get clear about what does that look like, and then reverse engineer it to say, okay, well, if I start doing those things today, I will actually have the things that I'm looking for much faster. So when it comes to setting goals, I think it's really important that you actually think big. You get clear, you think about it with abundance, and then you set them into very small, bite-sized steps, right? Because goals are like magnets. Once you put them out there, your brain goes about, it's got a reticular activating system. You've got a thing called reticular activating system. And what that does is it's an unconscious part of your mind that starts looking for things unconsciously based upon things that you've set up for it. Little memory points. So if you've actually, for example, if you're going to buy a car and you think about, I want to buy this type of car, it's going to be white and it's going to be, a Tesla or whatever. All of a sudden, when you're driving down the street, you're seeing the Teslas from miles away in the rear vision mirror and around the corner, because your unconscious mind is now looking for them, right? So I think what you got to do with your goals is go, I need to actually put them out there. I need to make sure that and I've got a formula. So everyone knows about SMART, right? So are they specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable? And are they realistic, and are they time framed, right? So if you've actually got goals set up in the right way, and you say, look, my business funds my life, set some really amazing goals in your life, and then go about how you need to achieve that inside a business, then that's actually going to be very, very important to you to achieving, to knowing what you say yes and what you say no to on a daily basis. You know, what systems do I need to set up? You know, what are the prospecting inputs I need to put in? How many calls do I actually need to make today, right? Because I know based upon the certain number of calls that I make, I'm going to get a certain number of appointments, you know, and so on and so on and so on. So it's the reverse engineering of that. So if you get really clear about what your goals are and then break those down into very simple metrics. So that's my top level metrics, but here's my daily focus. Right? Here's my daily focus. That sets up then your ideal week, and it sets up all of the activities that you say yes or say no to. Because the problem is, time is like gas. If we don't control where the gas is going to, it just evaporates. And you look up and you think, what actually happened here? So it's like, you know, if I took my water bottle here and I poured it out on the table, it would just flow everywhere. But if I give it riverbanks, it's going to flow in a particular direction. So getting goals, knowing your metrics, and setting up your daily activities is giving you those riverbanks to make sure that you're on track. Now, if you're off track, it's simply a matter of then adjusting what your activity levels that you need to get to. Right. So I think that, you know, you decide in terms of, we don't decide our future. It's the daily habits that we put in place that decide our future. Right. So I'm really big on making sure, and you are right, coming into this time of year, coming into end of the year, you know, what are your goals going into Christmas? What are your goals into the new year? And then how do you break them down into bite-sized chunks? But how do you also make sure that they're relevant? You've got people around you that can help you, making sure that you have solutions to problems. So for example, let me give you a simple example, Frank. For my own benefit, my own mindset, I look to try and meditate on a number of days per week, right? I learned that with 2 kids at home, 10 and 7, that I can't do it in the house, because if I do it in the house, I'm going to get interrupted. I then thought, hold on, I actually have got an infrared sauna. So if I jump in my sauna, I can actually do my meditation in there. So I now make sure that I'm doing the sauna and the meditation and some stretching 3 mornings a week, which then gives me some really good energy and purpose for my day. But if I hadn't anticipated that if I did it upstairs in the lounge room or in another room, my kids would come in and interrupt me. And then if that happened 3 or 4 times, I might actually stop doing the meditation. So I think you've got to go through with your goal setting and make sure you're setting yourself up for success, making sure you're putting yourself in the right environment, making sure you're anticipating those things that, you know, possibly could knock you off course, and having solutions for them. So I'm a big focus on goal set. So that helps.
Hey, Dean,
No,
can
that
I
helps
also
perfectly.
add to that as well, Frank?
Please, Will.
I think one of the things for goals for the new year in 2024, I think it's really important. We talked about being the product of your environment. We're talking about obviously self-belief, and that's really important. I think you have to look at your entourage. If you look at a lot of successful people, they have a huge, not a huge, but they've got a very small entourage, either their best mates that they grew up with, or more importantly, their partners, their wife, their husband. That is their entourage, because, you know, there are moments that other people, your staff or your clients, don't know about how you're feeling the day that you've had. And we sometimes have more shit days than better days. But, you know, when we go home, you know, who is your entourage at home who's going to support you? I think that's a really big goal that people need to set down. Who is going to be in that entourage for 2024? Because that's going to be important, because they're the people that they need to go to and say, hey, I didn't have a great day. I need to talk about it, because venting, getting it out and not bottling it up is really important, especially for, you know, mental health and all of that. Because, I mean, real estate, it is a roller coaster ride. And I think that's something that we need to know. Some cats are built differently. Like, you know, you've got people like Dean being CEO, myself. Sometimes people are built differently and they can take it, you know, and they can keep going and roll with the punches. But that is the few. The majority do need that support. They need that
Will,
entourage.
we probably need it
goal
too.
sets.
You probably need it. I need it. I mean, we probably go through the same thing, ups and downs, but
Absolutely.
people don't see it because we've had to learn how to manage those things. So look, if you can learn them as an agent, it's going to help you enormously, because people might not see Will or myself when we're going through our dark moments or having our doubts and our, because, you know, it's quite exhausting. If you don't manage this stuff, you know, in any part of real estate, it's a very taxing game mentally and emotionally.
100%.
100%. You got to put
and as you said before, Dean, you said it takes effect, you know, your mental health, but also your health, your personal health, your body. So, you know, and that can create problems later on. But definitely, as I said, just to reiterate, I think looking at your entourage for 2024 is definitely something to consider and look at, and who's going to help you get. I mean, you're going to help yourself get there, because you've got to be the better of you, but also who's going to go on that journey with you.
Well, what did Einstein say? Einstein said, negative people always have a problem for every solution.
Yeah.
That's perfect. If I may, team, I would love to add an overlay on the goal setting. So two things. So the way you described it there, Dean, was perfect. The two things I'd love to add to that is something that I've unlocked recently in my own life and in our business. Number one is around, you set the goals, you have those breakdowns in the quarterlies. But for me, it's around the repetition of talking about them. So to your point around there about creating the subconscious mind and having something, there's a real power in essentially almost every meeting, every sales meeting, weekly. For me, it's daily. Like, it's legit daily that I'm talking about what's my big audacious goal. It's the thing that reminds me about that deep purpose. It's the big scary one, right? It's not less so like I'm going to make 100 calls this week. It's more like, this is where I'm going to get to. And then the tone and the language that you use is really important. So let me take my example that's outside of business, is my mornings and weekends. My goal is to raise $1 million for children's cancer. It's short, it's concise, it's ambitious, and I repeat it probably 10 times a day. And I don't say I might, I may, I will. Do you know what I mean? And just having that change in language, you soon realize that people start to believe in it. They believe in it. You believe in it. You start not even wanting to let people down. And so having that continual repetition is really powerful. And then you go to your team member, what are we doing? And then having your team members, every one of them, every one of the agents, every one of the team members in your business, this is what we're doing. We are doing this as a really powerful tool to make sure that those goals aren't just something you set, personally in business. 10 years ago, it was something I set and then I kind of forget about because I ticked the box. It makes it a really daily practice. The next element there, which we touched on, damn it, I've lost it. No, I've got it. Right. With the goals is around, I almost am a lazy person, if you will. And what I think about is, what is my pathway to least resistance to get me to the goal? So it's great to have the big audacious goal. It's great to have the drivers like you were talking about there, Dean, which is the 100 calls. But I sometimes try to get the cheat code, which is, how can I get there quickest and fastest? And so to your point, Will, it's around like, okay, I can make 100 phone calls per day, every day for the next 365 days, or I can have 50 incredible people that have huge networks, and I can nurture those people and make them my screaming advocates and shout from the hilltops that they're going to use and advocate for my business. So I think about these big audacious goals, and rather than going like, I'm just going to do every little action to get me there, I think about almost the stepping stone above, which is, who are the people or what are the items that I can do that will get me to there as fast and frictionless as possible. And so it's just something I like to add there when we think about goal setting. Is there another way? And it's not like trying to find the cheat code or find the tech business, which all of a sudden gets you to the goals. Obviously, the fundamentals are important, but sometimes there is something that you can essentially prioritize your time that will give you a disproportionate jump up to your goals. So let's shift gears for a moment. Back to my question, Dean, is
around the technology piece.
When you're assessing technology, how are you doing that in your business to make sure you're setting your agents up for success?
Look, I think the technology piece in real estate's increasingly important, and I've always had this view. I think that we agents do an incredible job at managing the human connection and the emotional part of the transaction, and I think that that's always going to be valuable. So just start by that, and I think that my goal as a CEO of this organization is to work out how we use technology to enable our team to do a more effective role in having the right conversation with the right people at the right time. And so that then goes to, dealing with some of the, you mentioned making 100 phone calls and the cheat sheet on how to get there. It's like, well, how do we actually create a targeted call list based upon, first party and third party data that lands a call list in front of my team that says, if you make those 10 calls, you'll get 4 appointments, right? Now that's a much more effective use of their time and focus and impact if I can deliver that to my team as a focus area. So, or alternatively, if I look at what I'm doing with tenants, right? Change the whole way tenants get services, tenants get an amazing experience, and we streamline and automate a whole bunch of the work that a property manager does, because a lot of that job is in my view very process driven, and it could be repurposed to enrich the experience for the customer. So you sort of start with your Northern Star. What are you trying to achieve? Well, we're trying to say, okay, well, how do I create efficiency for an agent, right? Not so that they can get lazy, but so an agent can be more productive. How do I automate? How do I outsource? How do I do all of those things to make the efficiency and optimization of what they do, the transactional part of what they do, more effective? And then the flip side is, does it actually tick the box on lead generation, right? So I look at technology through two lenses. Does it optimize and create more efficiency, or does it generate leads? And then importantly, and the issue is, I think for a lot of people, is that technology is so disparate and it runs in silos and it's often disconnected. And in a lot of businesses, the infrastructure doesn't exist for the right API feeds to actually work. So, if you think about it, and you're using a particular CRM, you're relying upon that CRM's ability to create an API feed into a particular piece of technology that you might be interested in. So sometimes I find that because it's disjointed, there's different systems that you've got to log in and out of, and that actually creates a pretty ordinary user experience. And then the data that gets created along the way actually doesn't actually end up in one space. So Frank, we took a pretty long-term view at this, coming back to, I remember pacing around my lounge room during COVID. I'm really focusing hard and going to university on AI and data warehouses and all these things to say, what could we actually do to connect the dots? Because the frustration of all those independent bits of technology coming along into the business at one different times, dealing with one small part of the process is quite frustrating, I think, for a lot of agents and agencies. So we went out and made the decision to invest some significant funds in an engine room. And that engine room, if you want to call it that, allows us to send any sort of data into that one space, no matter where which technology we're using, and then use the AI in the background, and then push it back into the technology that we're using. So, for example, if an agent's using a CRM, what we want to do is connect all of the dots in the background to collect the information, make that information useful, shoot it back into the CRM so an agent can use it for lead gen or buyer conversion, right? So I think, my view on it's quite a little bit different to most, because most people haven't gone and built that system to connect the dots. I've got an API farm that I can do anything I want to and cut and dice that information and connect it in any way I want with any bit of first-party data across our business and any bit of third-party data we choose to ingest. So that's a powerful system, right? That said, if I get a piece of technology that comes in that doesn't actually connect properly to the system, or only does one small thin part of it that doesn't add a lot of value, then we're better off not taking it on, and because often it can just create extra levels of complexity and fractionalize people's focus. So it's like, so therefore, does it create efficiency and optimize the process, or does it create leads? And then can it all talk together? They're probably my key lenses. And so we might be a bit slow sometimes on the process of taking technology on because we want to work it through the process. I don't actually take a piece of technology on, just put it on because it looks good. We'll run it through our system. We'll get our key users to trial and test it. We may trial one office before another. So we're quite focused on making sure it's not technology for technology's sense. It's got to add value in a meaningful way. And I think you've got to think about what is it you're trying to achieve from use of technology, and how you're going to use the data. And if you don't have a strategy for it, you probably should get someone to help you with it, because I've had to sort of go back to data and technology university in the last 5 years, and then bring in data coaches, and then bring in experts who understand this a lot better than me. And sometimes I'm sitting in rooms and I don't know what the hell they're talking about. But the education piece is important too. There's one thing I know for sure: the digital transformation of our industry is not going away. In fact, it's going to become greater and greater and greater. So how do we learn to use technology in a meaningful way to improve the life of our agent and their effectiveness, and also the experience of the customer?
So my takeaway on that there that you've just touched on, Dean, is really important. So part one is there's so much noise out there. And if we look at every next shiny object and shiny tool and it looks really good, and we dive into it, we can often actually spend more time on all those tools than they're actually going to give us value. And how you define that is it have a strategy.
Well, Frank,
for everybody here that's listening,
the thing is, you'll find, funny enough, you'll go and put all this new technology within property management or sales, and you go and invest, and there's all these extra subscription costs and all that sort of stuff. And then you look at the productivity of the agents, and sometimes it's gone nowhere, and all you've done is increase your cost base and train them on how to use the system. But the agents go, oh, this is great, this is easier. But then the productivity, whether they get lazy with it or what, I think it's a great opportunity to put the foot down and go, okay, well, this can improve my productivity. But if you're not clear on your goals, you're happy to go, well, I'll do my 20 sales a year. This is just making it easy for me and giving me more time back, right? So you've got to think about what you're trying to achieve here with the technology, because you can certainly increase your costs and create a lot of distraction for a lot of benefit.
Perfect. And Will, for you, are there any key pieces of technology that you have that are kind of almost non-negotiable for your agents that helps them? It might be efficiency, or it might be in getting listings, as Dean's touched on there.
Frank, I mean, we're using your product at the moment, Engage, so that's been fantastic, mate. It's extremely efficient because, I mean, we were old school, putting proposals together. So things like that really sort of fast track a lot for the agents, and it's very meaningful, but it has a lot of value, as Dean was saying before. There's so much benefit in there. So I think the body of that technology that we use really sort of speaks volumes to sellers, because it just looks like we're putting in a lot of effort, in trying to obviously make sure that we do care about them, and really again, being relatable and really speaking their language, so to speak. So that's been something. I mean, we've got so many products at the moment with, and truth be told, I'm very old school, mate. I'm picking up the phone. I'm in front of people, face to face, presenting a contract. I've even got the team saying to me, "Hey, Will, so what do I do with this? Should I just give them a call?" I'm like, "No, you get in the car and you go drive and see them at 7 p.m. tonight. And you go present the offer. I don't care. There's no AI is going to get this over the line for you, brother." So, I think that's really important. But I mean, those products and the things that we use definitely are very effective, are very functional. But I think for us, it's not to lose sight of the fact that you got to keep building those relationships. That's really important. And my only concern with this process of, obviously, with technology, and I love it, it only works if you work it, gentlemen. Everyone listening in, it only works if you work it. And please understand, don't let it overtake and make you lazy. Because a lot of people, as Dean, you were saying before, you can rely on all of that and go, great, now I'm going to get 50 listings this year. It's going to replace the 50 that I did last year of making 100 phone calls every day or every second day. No, that's not going to work. People will get sick of it. It's going to become like spam or junk mail in their mailbox. So, it's there are many ways, but I think the human touch, the human connection is always, I think, in my opinion, for now, will always win. But 100 years from now, that might be different.
Hey, Will, I think you're spot on, mate. It's if you use the technology to get you to the customer as and when it's relevant to the customer, right? That's the trick, right? Because we have a lot of agents just calling through. I still look at traditional CRMs as still sort of 2D, non-connected, silo-based systems, right? Because you've got an agent who goes, "I think I should talk to Will in 12 months' time." Meantime, Will's got off the phone from me and his life's changed. He's got into Bunnings and he's bought some paint. He's looked at some finance. He's gone and had a look at some stuff. And your life's changed in that moment, right? And how many times as an agent have you driven past a property that you thought you were going to get that listing and you were due to call them in 6 months' time and the signboard's up with a competitor, right? It's because you just weren't jogging on the spot and talking to them as and when it was relevant to them. So I think if you can use that information, right, to then go to tune up your database or tune up your call list to say, all right, now's the time. They're showing some indicators. They're doing something, right? I'm going to call them now, right? Because that's the call, that human connection, that's your spot on. But if you use the technology in a smart way to then put you in place in front of the customer at the time that they need you, then that works. Because for me, I love buying shoes, right? So I go onto Iconic, and Iconic gets me because they know my profile, they know my background, they know what's going on. If I buy that type of shoe, it says, "Oh, you might also like this type of shoe." There's a carousel of all my other types of shoes. And if you order it today, it'll get delivered this afternoon. And man, it makes my life.
Just buy the shop.
Yeah. Just think about it, right? But just think about it. If you can be the Iconic to the customer, so that when they need you, you're there. You're in front of them on the socials, or you're in front of them in their news feed. You're calling them at the right time, right? So use the technology to help you have a better relationship, a contextual, real-time, dynamic relationship with your customer.
Yeah, and also, Dean, I think adding to that as well, and Frank, ask the right questions. Keep asking questions. There's nothing wrong with that. If you've got a client, people like that when you ask them about them. Make it about them and ask the right questions. Put that into the system, into the AI that you're using, and and then that will just keep pinging your phone and going, well, this is the time that I need to call them because you've asked the right questions. Well, when can I call you back? Build that relationship. Ask them questions about them, about their property, about how everything's progressing. Make it easier.
Oh, boys, feel like we're going to be jamming here for hours. Dean, I had an interesting conversation. Well, this just sounds silly as I say it, on a boat the other day. It was for a domain event, and it was an agent, and they were kind of talking about this idea around they still don't know about digital authorities and digital contracts. And then contradictory to that was another agent next door going, "You're crazy. What do you mean you could be doing it when you're not in front of them?" I'd love to understand, was there a hesitancy for you and your business to think about that shift from, the method of going, to the home at 7 p.m., whatever time, and giving over the authority to the digital space? Was there hesitancy for you at first?
I can see the value in it significantly because I collect a lot of data in the back end that then comes back in and serves and feeds follow up and all sorts of things, right? But and I think that the customer these days are sophisticated and they want to be able to look at things at their own leisure and be able to go in and play with marketing quotes and do stuff and sign when it suits them. I get all that. I mean, the old school way I used to go in when I was listing, I used to go in and I'd get them to sign on a piece of paper and I wouldn't leave until it was signed, right? I never put a proposal forward or did whatever. I think the world has changed, and I think the consumers they're showing quite clearly they love digital and they love their phone. So it's what's the customer? How's the customer like to interact? I think that's sort of there in my mind. I think there are a lot of agents felt like they were losing some control potentially, and still I find even with the engaged proposals, I've got agents who go, I do them, but I don't really sort of sit down and present that way in a lounge room. So I think we're still going through this phase of agents understanding how they can use digital, listing tools and sign on glass and authorities and digital, make offer via props and other bits and pieces that are out there. I think we're all still learning how all that works. And I think there is value in it, provided that the customer sees value in it and it makes the life of the agent more effective. So I sort of always look at these things as an opportunity to innovate. And I've certainly found the engaged proposal to be very, very useful, as has been the sign on glass and improving marketing authorities and those sorts of things.
Awesome, perfect. Well, we have time for one last question, and the question I want to ground ourselves in, and let's call it our today's customers. Our agents listening in today. What's one piece of advice that we haven't touched on so far that you think will help set them up for next year? That might be the killer scripts, the killer dialogue. It might be the changing of market, whatever it is. You go like, what would I find most valuable? And I'll throw it over and start with you, Will. Is like, what's the one piece you want to leave with the team today that we haven't touched on so far?
Oof, mate, that's a good question. Shit, put me on the spot. I was thinking about I was trying to come up with what is the most valuable thing. I think accountability, team. I know we talked about entourage and all of that. We talked about the product of being your environment. I think I really have to emphasize on that. And I'm not sure if I'm actually answering your question here, Frank, but I think maybe we're going to need, depending on where the market goes with interest rates. I mean, look, everyone's got an opinion on where the market may be over the next 6 to 12 months. But I think accountability is important. I think teams are important in this day and age. I think working together is important. I think encouragement, that's important. So for me, I would say teaming up with someone. I think that's going to help, depending, the guys and girls that are listening in today right now who want to, obviously their first year, second year, third year, 10 years in, I think having someone there by your side to bounce off, I think that's something that I would say would be, engaging, but also supportive for both yourself and your partner, your business partner, so to speak, in the industry. So I would probably look at that as something that people need to look at in the new year. I mean, I can talk about phone calls and door knocks and bringing on new technology and all of this type of stuff, but I think that's really, really important. I think, and you know what? I think talking about your wins are important. I think, when you've got your team, celebrating those small wins, as Dean was saying, having those massive goals, but then having the small goals, and really without showing off too much, without getting too ahead of yourself and being arrogant, but more confident around your team, really expressing your wins for the week, expressing your win for the day, making you feel good. I think those are the things that I would really want to emphasize to the guys and girls that are listening here today. Really share that, because we're happy to share the drama of the day. We're happy to share the issues that we've had and really vent on that and really share that to people. But, when you've had a win, I got a listing today. It's like, mate, scream it from the rooftops that you got a listing and be excited about that, or that you got invited into a big $10 million property that you thought you would never go into. So I would say that would be something, accountability, definitely.
Awesome, perfect. Dean, I'm going to steal you on, and I do apologize because we have 1 minute and I'm very conscious of everybody's diaries. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to you guys for joining today. I think for me, the takeaways are as follows. Number one is around that context and your why. We got to share in on your stories today. I absolutely love hearing those. Obviously, there's a lot of context there, and those are your drivers. And for everybody here, you might not have that driver in that context, but it's like, what is your mission? What is your purpose? Getting really clear on that, and that's going to help you through each and every day. Underpinning that is having really clear goals and making sure we talk about them often, and we break them down into individual drivers. Next is the team you surround yourself with, the people in your life that keep you accountable and are going to push you to make the right decisions, to share in the wins with you. Following that, we have around the technology. So technology, remembering that we are in a human business. Let's not get caught up in all the noise that's in the space, and let's go, what is the technology that's going to truly serve us as agents in our day-to-day, that's going to allow us to list, sell, and negotiate, and ultimately give us efficiency as well as help us win that next listing. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a great domain and real base webinar today if I didn't do a quick cheeky plug. So you want to see a link come through today. We have the two products we spoke about: Engage, our digital proposal, and RTA, our digital authorities and digital contract signing. We have a special on that's coming until the 31st of December. For everybody that joined today, I really appreciate it. What I would love personally and very selfishly is I'd love some feedback. What didn't we talk about today? What would you love to see next time? Do you want a new facilitator? Has Frank been annoying? That's okay. Whatever it is, share away. We'd love to hear it, because ultimately we only do this for one reason, and that's for value. We want to have it that you leave here today, you're extra pumped up, and that you got value from it, because ultimately I won't be able to buy your attention next time, because you're not going to want to come back because it was lame, and hopefully it wasn't. So Will, Dean, thank you. That was an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everybody for joining. I have to drop the link in, I've been told. One of my team said, Frank, quickly. There we go. Oh, no, that's a direct message. Damn. Everyone, here I am. All right, everybody, stay on. Click that link. Boys, thank you so much. Enjoy the day and go perform at the highest level.
Thanks to everyone listening as well. So really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See you guys.